shall loyalty. Praises to our Savior who granted us the freedom. Allegiance to the hero who bowed the Lord with Diablo. Glory to glory, we rise and never to fall. Here in a nation flowing with earth and holy. Glory, glory, glory to the Father for making you a nation, a joy forevermore. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation.
My fellow Southern Cameroonians, fellow Ambazonians, I am very delighted that you, the people of Southern Cameroon, through your representatives in the various organs that make up the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia Consortium United Front, popularly known as CACOV, are the third conclave of delegates. You unanimously elected me as the chairman of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia Executive Council. I am also very happy that Mr. Tassam Wilfred and Milan Adam were elected as Vice Chairman and Secretary General respectively to support me in this struggle. We henceforth have the odious task of continuing with the brilliant work that the Secretariat and organs of SCACUF have been doing to take our struggle for the restoration of our statehood to a logical end. I thank God Almighty for bringing us this far, and I seize this opportunity to thank the people of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia who have found me worthy to captain this ship. I am filled with humility and gratitude for this divine call to which I say yes. We hear the voices of our people crying out loud from the prison cells. The pain of our daughters that are raped we feel. The groans of our sons and daughters under torture we endure. The echoes from far beyond of those that have paid the ultimate price with their lives, we hear those echoes. I know the people of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia have been and continue to dream of that moment when we shall move from mere thought and thoughts to reality. That time has come, and we are counting on all of you to get there and to get to Boya. However, we have been informed that Mr. Biya, President of the Republic du Cameroon, will be addressing his nation anytime soon. If he intends to address what has become known as the Anglophone problem, then I want to send a few pointers to him. Number one, there will never be business as usual until the restoration of the statehood of Southern Cameroon is adequately and satisfactorily addressed. This is the people's struggle, and anyone who for some selfish interest goes ahead to have any discussions with the government of La République du Cameroon will be representing only himself or herself. The people of Southern Cameroon have identified a leadership that they respect and they obey. That leadership started with a consortium headed by Barrister Felix Abobala, Dr. Fontem-Liba, and Wilfred Tassam, whom Yaoundé outlawed, threw Bala and Fontem in prison, and sent Wilfred and well others into foreign nations as refugees. In February 2017, a conclave was organized that brought together the frontline movements in our struggle for restoration. A united front known as CACUF was formed, and its leadership has steered the struggle to this day. At the close of its third conclave, SCACUF have identified a restructured leadership team with me at the head. We know that we now have the mandate to be the voice of the people of Southern Cameroon. We are calling for the immediate and unconditional release of the leaders of our struggle: Barrister Agbobala, Dr. Fontem-Liba, Mancho Bibixi, Lord Justice Ayapol Adine, and many other persons arrested on trumped-up charges and detained because of this struggle. Several other people have reportedly disappeared, and no one knows where they were abducted and where they've been taken to. But let me make it very clear that Yaoundé must account for every single southern Cameroonian and Ambazonian whose whereabouts remains unknown.
The first thing is to be honest with yourself. You can never have an impact on society if you have not changed yourself. And one of the most important weapons in changing yourself is to recognize that people everywhere in the world want peace.
The God who got us into this servitude is the one bringing us out. I feel confident about it because when our people started having these pro-independence riots, like in Bamenda usually, where they burnt a whole police station and calling for singing home again, trying to get saying this pushback out of our country. In response, the Cameroon government enacted a law of the United Republic of Cameroon, law number 84/01. They, in the debates for it, they said the question of calling this thing the United Republic of Cameroon gives the impression that there are two countries that are united. We should therefore make sure this united is out so that there should be no trace that there was another country. Little did they know that the outcome of reinventing the Republic of Cameroon is that legally you have also reinvented the sovereignty of the other country. So the law which they intended to wipe us out is the law that dissolved the illegal union. That is the work of God.
Somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around.
Africa became the hunting ground for the European colonizers, and we were the spot. Our ancestors built the United States of America. Our ancestors built Europe. And when slavery had lost its shine and sheen, the Europeans abolished it. But they replaced it with yet another pernicious enterprise, the colonization of Africa. The Europeans sat in Berlin, in Germany, in 1884, and they looked at the map of Africa and parceled it out. The British had their share. The Germans had their share, and Tanzania or Tanganyika was their share, as was Rwanda and Burundi. The Spaniards were Johnny-come-latelys in the arena, and they got little Equatorial Guinea and Southwest Africa. The French were here, the Portuguese were here, and we were colonized. This time round, they did not take us away. They came here, and they controlled us, and they told us, not in so many words, that we were children of a lesser God. And we were treated as if we were children of a lesser God. In fact, they told us that on the day of creation, we were merely hewers of wood and drawers of water. And if anybody were to doubt it, in 1948, it was more blatant when Hendrik Verwoerd instituted the apartheid regime in South Africa.
If in these later years of a life lived in pursuit of equality, we can at last look upon our own country as one in which citizens, regardless of race, gender or creed, share equal political rights and opportunities for development, we do so with great gratitude towards the millions upon millions all around the world who materially and morally supported our struggle for freedom and justice.
Dear people of Southern Cameroon, once more we come to you in a very unusual position this time around. We are doing this video in a car because we are on the move, but the urgency is of utmost importance. We come to you at this last minute to make a last appeal for total adherence to the 3 days ghost town that we have declared. Dear people, when the struggle reaches this stage, it needs that we also up our degree of commitment, that we increase in our steadfastness, that we increase in our fasting and in our prayer, and that we show the enemy that we are determined. The only way at this moment to show the enemy that we are determined to go home is for adherence for 3 days of ghost towns.
I was in the company of great men indeed. Some of them more qualified, more talented than I am. And to sit down with them, to exchange views, was one of the most revealing experiences I had. To sit down with those men and to exchange views, it enriched your own life. It fortified your morality. It gave you courage to do better than your best.
We have pledged and do guarantee to provide our children the education which will make them globally competitive. We hear some members of parliament are calling on the government of La République du Cameroon to discuss with them on this struggle. Our leadership will consider any negotiations and dialogue without the detained leaders and those in exile as null and void. This struggle belongs to the people, and when our people are released from jail, then we will open the doors for any discussions and negotiations. The lessons of January 2017 are still very fresh in our memories. If any such negotiations are to be held, they must be done in a neutral territory in the presence of internationally recognized mediators, particularly the African Union, the United Nations, France, and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and Northern Ireland.
I'm also aware, as a young, keen student, the early years of your independence during the President Ambazonia, and the history of the rise of President Paul Biya, and the history of French colonies is one that is very unique in terms of administration, and the fact that France continues in a remote way, if it is remote at all, to control her former colonies, including those that were consumed by their former colonies. In fact, as recently as 3 months ago, the current French president actually did admit, not so directly, but said that we are no longer going to control our former colonies, which was in itself an admission that they have been controlling them, which they continue to do. So I understand that bit, and as a keen student of African history and one who desires that there be peace and prosperity in Africa, as I've traveled in Africa, particularly in the last 2 years, in terms of the Cameroons, I'm aware of what has been happening. I'm told that there's been no internet. I think all internet has been cut off for the last
3-6 months.
3-6 months. I'm aware of the refugee situation, those who are, in fact, it's only last week that I was talking to a friend of mine who is from Cameroon called Senye, who was in the Cross Rivers in Calabar, dealing with about 6,000 refugees.
There are now 40,000.
There are now 40,000 that are settled there. The burning of whole villages, and it's also very poignant that just 2 days that I talked to Sisiku, is it? Yes, just for the first time, 2 days later, and then I learned that he was abducted. I think somebody, I don't know whether it's my friend Chiro who had given me his number.
Yes,
and then 2 days he called me, we had a conversation. I said I would be going to Lagos, said we'll meet when you come to Lagos. Then I hear he's abducted. As we speak, of course, nobody knows where they are. There have been rumors that they have been handed over to the Biya administration, which could very well be true. We did get in touch with the human rights activist Falana, and I asked him yesterday whether he knows. He has not responded. So the situation is one that is very worrisome, which begs the question, where does one go from here? One may, of course, have noted a number of things. That the UN is silent on this matter, that ECOWAS is silent on this matter, that the African Union is silent on this matter. The heads of states and government are just concluding their 30th meeting in Addis Ababa, but I've seen no statement. I think, in fact, Cameroon was not even isolated as an issue in the same manner that South Sudan was. So one can almost begin to say that the continent is oblivious of what is happening in Cameroon. What then should be done? And before I say what should be done, I want to stop so that I'm able to hear from you who I contact with the ground on a daily basis. Those of you who are involved, I know there are those who feel that this is a marriage that has now hit the wall and is beyond salvation, and that the only solution is separation. That is a very strong wave. There are those who say perhaps if there is reason on the part of the government of Paul Biya, there can be a middle way where autonomy is achieved in the southern part. But the wave of secession is very strong. But the one thing that one must be alive to, particularly when one is dealing with the AU as an institution, however weak it is very hostile to secession, very rapidly hostile. And you've seen that in the case of Sahrawi, one of the reasons why Morocco, the Polisario Front. Eritrea is one of the few, in fact, Eritrea is the only country that had almost a similar history with the southern Cameroon, because it was independent before it was subjugated by the Ethiopians. But after the war against the Deg regime, through almost a personal agreement between Meles Zenawi and Isaias Afewoki, we then created Eritrea. So when one talks secession, African leaders are very hostile to it. And I suspect that most of them don't even want to understand the uniqueness of the Cameroonian situation. In fact, I've always thought that Nigeria, the country that should understand the history best, is Nigeria. Because they were involved from day one. And there are leaders who are there from day one in Nigeria who are still alive, who have not even talked about it. I would have thought, for example, that President Obasanjo, who understands it very well, should have spoken. Yakubu Gowon understands it very well. Even General Buhari, because they were younger people and they were there in the early days, and they knew the circumstances under which Southern Cameroon were then compelled to make a choice. The choices were very clear. You either go with Nigeria or you go with the Cameroons. There was never a third option. There was never a third option. So in a sense, this was a forced marriage. So how do you get out of this situation, particularly the human aspect of it? And the last thing I want to say before I'll then intervene lastly, what then is the role of the Cameroonians in the diaspora? Because I think now there is a sense in which it is only you who are in the diaspora that have the exposure and the liberty to make serious contribution. The people on the ground have been beaten into submission. And the neighborhood is also not hostile, or rather is hostile to those who are in that neighborhood. So it is you who are far removed in Europe and America who, in my view, can bring pressure to bear both internationally and locally. And perhaps your voices can be heard. And it is in this regard that some of us can then be recruited as foot soldiers to raise awareness, to profile this problem in a positive way, and possibly begin to create useful contacts with individuals and institutions, both in Africa and outside of it, so that the humanitarian situation is addressed. And to me, this must be a
Humility is one of the most important qualities which you must have. Because if you are humble, if you make people realize that you are no threat to them, then people will embrace you. They will listen to you.
To our Francophone brothers and sisters who respect our struggle, we salute your courage and honesty to identify the truth. Meanwhile, to those Francophone brothers and sisters, especially those on the soil of Southern Cameroon, who continue to violate our ghost town calls and boycotts, we call you immediately to order. This struggle has never been, never will be, Anglophones against Francophones. So you must desist from provoking our people. The pain of our people from 56 years of servitude is deep, and we need no further provocation at this moment. If you cannot take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
We were advised by colleagues in the United Nations. We have examined the documentation of how you people got together and found that there is nothing at the UN here which legalizes the Republic of Cameroon ruling your country. But your MPs, the people you have elected, are giving legitimacy by the fact that they are participating in the government of the Republic of Cameroon. If you can get your people to boycott that parliament, we'll give you a seat here, because we applied for a seat to be given to Ambazonia in the United Nations. So I had this discourse with Frundi by phone. Donald Ngundam was here. It was a conference call. I told him what the situation was. And this, it required just blackmail. It's a matter of writing a letter to these MPs that by the 31st of October, you stop going to Yaoundé, because Yaoundé Parliament was to meet about the 4th or 6th of November. If they were absent from that parliament for only 48 hours, we would have been free. In fact, even today, you people who say you have control about these boys back home, if they could get our members of parliament to be absent from Yaoundé Parliament, we will become free. So, Frundi, we airmailed the papers to him. When they arrived, Frundi took them and burnt them. We couldn't understand what happened. However, a separate set was sent to Yongbang in Douala. He took it across to Stephen Tita in Limbe, Stephen Tita summoned the 4 members of parliament from FACO, and it was a unanimous support to boycott. It was 100% support. Those 4 members of parliament said there has to be a boycott. But then, before they realized, they heard that Brazil people were already around it. MPs were there. They had to, because they had not received any papers. We had not seen any. So this is how we lost our first opportunity of becoming free. Would have been free since 1990.
And this was not anything new. In 1776 in the United States of America, the American state sitting in Philadelphia in the United States of America declared unto themselves that all men are born equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A few years later in France, after the revolution, they also recognized that we were to be equal, so that the colonized nations which had now taken Africans thought that they were safe. They had taken Leopold Sédar Senghor from Senegal to Paris, and they thought that they were creating a little Frenchman. Little did they know that they were creating somebody who would want to overthrow them. They took Félix Houphouët-Boigny from Côte d'Ivoire, and they thought that they were creating somebody who would be subservient to them. They took Ahmed Sékou Touré and Modibo Keïta, and they thought they were safe. Little did they know that they were creating the future leaders and agitators against French colonization. And it did not stop there. The Portuguese also took Agostinho Neto and Amilcar Cabral and Eduardo Mondlane to Lisbon. Little did they know that those individuals would be the catalyst that would be necessary in the process of decolonization. The British also had their fair share. They took others. They took Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere, Hastings Kamuzu Banda, Kenneth David Kaunda, and many others to the United Kingdom, Jomo Kenyatta. Little did they know that those would be the individuals who sometimes later, and in Ghana, of course, they took the Osagyefo, Kwame Nkrumah, and in Nigeria, they took Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sultan of Sokoto. There is a sense, therefore, in which these individuals started recognizing that having been enslaved, having been colonized, we now had to liberate ourselves. And the agitation started. And Kwame Nkrumah and his Ghana acquired independence in 1957. And I still can hear Kwame Nkrumah through the vicissitudes of time saying in Accra, Ghana, that Ghana is free and will never be colonized again. But the freedom of Ghana means nothing if the rest of Africa is not free.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
I want to heartily thank the local and international media organs as well as the social media that have relentlessly kept our struggle in the limelight over the past months. I equally thank the various international bodies and countries that have opened their doors to us, not only to listen to us, but to support us as a new country battling its way out of recolonization, out of slavery, and out of servitude. We pledge to merit that trust and to work as partners on the international stage in the months ahead. With humility and gratitude, I I once more thank you for the opportunity to serve my people of the Southern Cameroons. God bless you. God bless Southern Cameroons. I'm Sisiku Ayoktabe, Chairperson, the Southern Cameroons Ambazonia Executive Council.
Glory, we the Ambazonians pledge our loyalty. Praise to our Savior who granted us our freedom. Our legends to the hero who bowed the land with Diablo. Glory to glory, we rise and never to fall. Here in our nation, flowing with earth and holy. Glory, glory, glory to the Father for making you a nation, a joy forevermore. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our needs, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our needs, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation.
How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? How many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in